In my most recent video, I got to have 5 exclusive interviews with some of the most amazing heroes of all time. Specifically, these are some of the heroes from World War II. And in this video, I'm going to be showing you more of the completed interviews, as well as giving you a brief guide on all my thoughts on this, because this was a big passion project of mine. And I could not have done any of this without Benjamin from the World War II Veteran History Project, and he was so helpful throughout this whole thing. His premise is that he wants to get the message of all the World War II veterans out there before they pass on, because they are all getting up there in age in their late 90s. He even wrote this book, which he sent to me, called World War II History for Teens, which is a great guide for anyone from like the ages of 12 to 16 if you want to understand World War II. He left a little message that says, "For Logan, aka Republic Studs, to our mutual love of Lego and our future partnership to help share the stories of World War II." I'll leave a link to this. It's free on Amazon, and you can get the paperback for a pretty good price. And obviously in the video on my main channel, we covered some pretty big and important battles, but it was by no stretch of the imagination all of them. Luckily, we have some interviews from some of these great veterans, and I'm going to be showing you excerpts from each of them. So first up, here's some footage from Harley Reynolds, who fought in the Battle of North Africa.
My name is Harley Reynolds. I was in the 16th Infantry Regiment of the Big Red 1 Infantry Division. Of course, we didn't know where we were going for that first invasion that we were training for during that time, but it was in North Africa. I landed 45 minutes ahead of the battalion, regiment, the whole division. We were on a special mission that they launched 45 minutes before the actual invasion. We caught them by surprise, I'm sure. But when they woke up, then of course the Germans were resisting very, and the Italians, because there was an awful lot of Italian troops there at the same time. Well, to begin with, it was a dreary place. There's nothing but mountains and the hot sun, and of course, we had to live out in it. We had no quarters like we did in the States, you know. So it was miserable. The fighting was always very intense. The Germans were damn good fighters. The first contact that we had with the Germans was 2 motorized motorcycles. And a driver and then a machine gunner and a sidecar with a machine gun. And I knocked out the first 2 that we faced. Personally, I knocked them out.
Now next up we have Glenn Christians. Glenn Christians is a really cool guy because he fought in like a bunch of different battles, and he survived over 3 different sinkings of his ship.
My name is Glenn A. Christians, and my rank was signalman 2nd class in the Navy. At the beginning of the war, the U.S. was building a lot of arms for the military, tanks, guns, airplanes, but they had no way of getting it to Europe, which is where the battle was. And the convoys would have, as I say, 60 or 80 or 100 ships on it. And then you'd have ships on the horizon watching for the enemy, ships on both sides, Navy ships, and ships at the rear. The Germans had a very active submarine corps, and the submarines were sinking about half of the ships that went across. Well, we happened to get sunk one night about 11 o'clock, and we were about 400 miles off of Cape Town. And we all got into lifeboats, and the only ones that were killed were the engine room people, because that was down below the deck. The German sub surfaced near us, and they all ran out and got on the big guns. I thought, boy, we are dead. They're gonna kill us all. Well, what happened is the captain came out on the conning tower and said, if there's anybody hurt, we will patch them up and send them back to you. And fortunately, there was nobody hurt. So then he said, do you have water? And we had water, some water, yeah. And then he didn't mention food, but anyway, should have, because we were hungry. And then so he said, well, you were about 400 miles off of Cape Town, and then he asked if we had a compass. We said yes, and then he said, "All right, well I wish you Godspeed and good luck to you." And that was it. That was in September '42 when he got sunk, and after that, Hitler found out that they were doing that, and he told them they had to kill all survivors instead of helping them. And so we were very lucky.
Next up is Captain John Ron. He's 100 years old this year, and he is also the last surviving military officer that was in the first group to land at Normandy. I don't know if any of you saw the movie Saving Private Ryan, but he basically had a lot of the same role as Tom Hanks's character. You can look at the helmet and everything. Let's show you his full story.
My name is John Carpenter Ron Jr. I was a Major General at the time I retired in the United States Army. And at the time we're going to discuss, which is World War II, I was a captain in the 5th Ranger Infantry Battalion. We went in, I would say, in good daylight. We could see the bluffs, we could see the enemy positions on top of the bluffs, that type thing. But it was 6:30 in the morning, local time. But when we got to the beach, it was just plain out and out hell. The noise was bordered on unbearable. The fires that were occurring, human flesh, blood, oil, unburned explosives, vehicles, rubber, canvas. Oh, the smells were terrible too. But the machine gun fire and rifle fire that just went over our heads like a bunch of bees, and I'm talking thousands and thousands of small arms rounds every minute passing over your head, and occasionally hitting somebody who is next to you, that type thing. It was pretty bad. It was pretty bad.
Next up is Robert Pope, and he was a member of the Battle of the Bulge, which was the last major push on the German offensive. And Germany obviously began to lose after this. And let's hear what he has to say, because he has a really interesting story to tell about specifically some cool stuff with planes.
Robert Pope, and I was in the 106th Infantry Division, 500th, 590th Field Artillery Battalion, Battery A. On December 16th, Battle of the Bulge started. 6 o'clock in the morning we started getting shells in front of us, on both sides of us, and later that morning our captain, battery commander, was the first victim of the war. We were rushed up so fast we did not have adequate supplies. I was in the field artillery, and the howitzers had 6 rounds of ammunition. It takes a good gun crew 5 minutes to get them off. So you can see how little they were equipped. I was a machine gunner, and I had just one string of bullets, and that'd have been out in 2 or 3 minutes. We had one clip in our carbines. Fog was so bad, what they call snow fog, that with our field glasses we could see shadowy figures moving, but could not tell whether they were our troops coming back or their troops advancing. And that's the way the land was there, with snow and freezing temperatures. And we moved in several directions. We got strafed once by a German 109, but he didn't last very long. He had a P-51 right on his tail, and he shot him down right up ahead of us.
Is Fred Huebner. Fred is awesome, and he was also in the fight for the last push into Germany. He talks a lot about some of the horrible carnage that was going on there and how they were using like civilians to fight and all the different things that went on. And he has one of my favorite stories because there's a funny element to it, and I'll let you hear that for yourself.
My name is Frederick Huebner. I was in the infantry. I reached the rank of sergeant. At this point, we were, of course, the winning army. We had more of everything, but the Germans were still fighting. and we were fighting in column formation because we were moving almost all the time. And the tanks would line up, and the infantry took turns riding on the tanks. The Germans were enlisting, if that's the right word, all the old men and the young kids. And they would hand them what they call a Panzerfaust, which was a Panzerfaust is basically a warhead about the size of your head mounted on a pipe. And it's got a small charge in the pipe. When you press the trigger, it blows this warhead out. And it was designed, it was a shape charge on the warhead, which means it concentrated all the blast forward. And it was designed to knock out a major tank with one blow. And we were going down the street, and this German soldier leaned out of the window and fired one of those things at me. And it makes a hell of a noise when it lands. But he was a little bit nervous, and he didn't come anywhere near me. At that time, I was carrying an M1 rifle with a grenade launcher on it. And I fired the grenade launcher back at him. I didn't hit the window directly. I hit about a foot alongside the window, and I blew a hole about 6 inches in diameter right through that brick wall. And I kind of humorous. I still have memories of this German soldier running down the back stairs, covered with plaster dust. It was a very unpleasant odor coming out of his pants.
I will say this video has been one of the biggest passion projects of mine, and as I noted at the end of the main video, my great-grandfather served in World War II. I'll give you a bit of background because I want to be able to take time in this video to help explain all that. And this is his uniform, by the way, so that's pretty cool. Anyway, he was a weather specialist during the war, and he would go up before all of the other planes and try to surveil the weather to make sure that planes would be safe to go up into the air. He would tell us stories about how, you know, they had to drink whiskey to keep warm because they didn't have internal heating at the time on the planes. In fact, as I was showing in the video, we have a bunch of different pictures and stuff from his photo albums from when he was over fighting. And you could see all the planes he was flying, the outfits he was wearing, the bomber jackets, which looked crazy. And the branch he was in the Air Force. He was a lieutenant, I believe. I'll be honest, I'm not too sure. I'll have to get back to you guys on that one. Anyway, the way a lot of the interviews we got here were through the World War II Veteran History Project. I reached out to them and offered this, basically this video pitch because I wanted to be able to expose as many people as possible to the great sacrifices that were made for them. And as a parting message from my own account, I think it's important to note the freedoms that these men fought for and that we realize the values and principles that they were standing on, because they were up against true, real evil. And I think the heroics and sacrifices of these men are what allow us to live freely, and I think we need to make sure we understand what it is they sacrificed. And as a side note, I am beyond humbled to have them in my videos. It is one of the best things I think I may ever do in my entire YouTube career. So thank you to our vets, and thank you to the fallen for sacrificing so much. And I will be here and I am forever grateful. And also, if you have stories of anyone you know who fought in World War II, please leave it down in the comments. I want to hear all of them and read all of them. I will see you all in the next one. Remember to peace out and stay awesome.